Get ready to enter the Thrivetime Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colin Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of five, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C&Z up on your radio. And now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll
All Thrive Nation, if you started from the bottom and you're still at the bottom, that's not a move. If you started from the bottom and you are still at the bottom, that is not a move. However, I have some really terrible statistics that I thought I would demotivate everybody with. So according to Forbes right now, 70% of people, 70% of U.S. employees hate their jobs. Now, I know that we have people who listen to this podcast from all over the world. Recently, as we've moved into the top 20 of all podcasts in the world on the iTunes charts, recently, as more and more people have found the podcast on Spotify, we've now reached, we actually, this will be 2 Fridays ago, we reached the #1 ranking in the world out of all podcasts. Woo! And so we have a lot of people listening from other countries, but to my knowledge, we don't have people from other planets currently listening to the show. So if you're on the planet Earth, 70% of people hate their jobs in America. I realize if you're not in America, maybe like if you're in like South Korea, maybe right now 90% of people love their jobs. However, I doubt that. Now, another stat here for you is the average American does not have $400 saved, regardless of income or age. The average American does not have $400 saved. The average American does not have $400 saved.
Is that with doctors? Is that with lawyers?
Oh, dude, I've worked with every industry, and I'm telling you, it's the same regardless of income, regardless of industry. It's just the normal is dysfunction. And so today's show is all about the best business podcasts and the power of properly feeding your mind. Again, the best business podcasts and the power of properly feeding your mind. So I'm going to read a notable quotable, Robert, from David J. Schwartz, the best-selling author of the book called The Magic of Thinking Big, that made a big impact in my life. That book really did make a big impact in my life. And so I'm going to read the notable quotable from the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And Robert, I want for you to break it down for the members of the Thrive Nation.
All right.
The mind is what the mind is fed. Robert, can you add some echo, please? I want some more echo. The mind is what the mind
Is what the mind
is fed.
fed.
Well, Gary, I'm hungry. I don't even care about feeding my mind. I just looking for. Do you guys have those sweet potato fries? Those are excellent. No, but I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, having grown up in an environment where I was not surrounded by successful entrepreneurs, I oftentimes found myself frustrated that I didn't even know what I didn't know. I was feeding my mind a steady stream of negative quotes, lyrics, movies, and data. And it wasn't until the age of 18, while reading Napoleon Hill's legendary book, Think and Grow Rich, that it occurred to me that my network was going to ultimately determine my net worth. It became apparent to me at that age that I was not ever going to achieve success in the world of business if I was not intentional about surrounding myself with people who had already built their multi-million-dollar business empires. I discovered that I knew I needed to surround myself with people that could teach me what they actually did to become successful and not just theories about how to become successful. My friend, in order to surround myself with multimillionaires, billionaires, and everyday success stories, I literally cold called, emailed, mailed, and struggled for years to get an appointment with many of these top performers. These people were all so intentional about both their time and their money that they weren't making themselves accessible for guys like me. I mean, it was nearly impossible to get a hold of these people. However, I finally did get an appointment with the founder of Hobby Lobby, George Foreman, David Robinson, the founder of Sky Vodka, and the president of Quick Trip. And I found that these successful people all oozed with words of wisdom that just seemed to seep out of their pores. I felt myself learning through osmosis just by learning in their presence. Their firsthand experience and specific tips on how to run a successful and scalable business seemed to be almost instinctual at this point. I mean, their mastery of marketing, management, and sales and accounting blew my mind. However, now, you and I find ourselves living in a world of technology where people can use podcasts. This just in. You and I can use podcasts to bridge the gap between you and the guru. You want to meet with a guru? You can now through podcasts. I mean, you now can sit down by the click of a button and listen to Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, the guy who hosts the Masters of Scale podcast, who will take the time to break down their sage advice into palatable doses. But yet, despite this unprecedented access to sage-like free wisdom, many entrepreneurs, not you, no, not you.
Holy cow!
I'm not talking about you. I know you felt offended for a second. I'm not talking about you. Other people, despite having unprecedented access to this free, are you freaking kidding me? Free. I had to pay Michael Levine $25,000 to pick his brain. It's free. Free. You now have access to free sage-like wisdom. Many entrepreneurs still say, I ran out of time. I didn't get a chance to listen to the podcast or the show because I was so busy. I ran out of time. So as your unofficial de facto business coach, I'm going to recommend there's 3 ways you can save time to free up time to listen to the podcasts that can change your life. There's 3 ways. And Robert, I'm going to break these down one by one. I want to get your take on the first one. I want to get Matt's take on the second one. And I want to get Sean's take on the third one. Now, Robert Redmond is a business coach. Matt works at the Thrivetime show. And Sean is a business coach. So here we go, one by one. Tip number 1, to free up time to listen to things that will change your life, to learn the things that will change your life. Stop watching TV. The average American right now, according to the New York Times and Nielsen, they did a survey. The average American is now spending 5 hours per day watching TV. Robert, bring us the good news. How can we possibly stop watching TV?
You can get real clear on the type of life you want to live and what it's going to take to live that life. And then the appeal, I found that the appeal to TV will be less because you have something greater and more meaningful that you want to reach. But typically people don't do that. They drift. And so what do after they get home or whenever? They spend 5 hours watching TV.
Oh, you got to watch 5 hours of TV. I mean, if you want to be unsuccessful, you have to commit yourself to watching 5 hours of TV a day. I mean, if you want to be unsuccessful, I mean, it's a commitment, baby.
It's a big commitment.
You got to commit. It's 5 hours a day.
It requires some consistency there.
You got to, I mean, that's like 35 hours a week, bro. I mean, you got to put in the time. Now, the next move is you got to put your smartphone down. You got to put your cell phone down. You got to stop allowing yourself to be interrupted all of the time. Now, Matt, the average American devotes nearly 10 hours of screen time per day. The average American is spending 10 hours per day on that smartphone. Could you help us? How can we possibly free up the time needed to learn from successful people if we're on the smartphone 10 hours a day?
Well, the first step is to, obviously put the cell phone down. What I've had to do in order to make that happen for me is I actually had to go to a friend and say, hey, I want you to get on my phone and block all social media, block any form of access to where I can't physically have access to these so that there's no way for me to access them. And then over time, I just grew to where I didn't need them anymore. I didn't have that addiction.
I agree. When you delete the apps, the addiction or the need will disappear. Because you talk about how a lot of these apps on these social media apps are designed in the same way gambling machines are designed.
Yes.
In that
Yes.
they are actually designed to get you hooked. So you keep looking at it, so you check that notification. And I found, like what Matt is just saying, is when you just delete it, you'll forget about it. And that temptation becomes so easy just to click the button and to go to the places and waste a lot of time. But if it's there, the temptation's not there, then you'll be able to save time and you won't even have that temptation to pick the phone up.
I'm going to read a notable quotable to you guys from a Naval Ravikant.
Oh.
But before I read the notable quotable, I want to give you kind of a background into who Naval Ravikant is. Naval Ravikant is the CEO and co-founder of Angel List. He previously co-founded ePinions. He's one of the early-stage investors in Uber, Twitter, Facebook, Stack Overflow, and this is what he has to say. This is powerful. Robert, have you ever looked up Naval Ravikant? You ever spent any time looking him up? You kind of have an idea of who he is? Do you know? Have you looked him up?
Yeah, I've heard you talk about him a lot. I'm not real familiar with who he is, but I've heard you talk about him.
Okay, I'm going to pull him up on the big screen just so you guys can have an idea of who he is and kind of get a better look at him there. That's Naval Ravikant. There he is.
Wow.
And Naval Ravikant started a company called Angel List. Now, Angel List bridged the gap between venture capitalists and startups looking for the funding, okay, where the world meets startups. This is how it works here. And you can see who each venture capitalist has invested in. So you could see, like, you could pull up the company, and then it would show that, hey, Tim Ferriss has invested in this company, or this company, this person invested in. And and it serves a great purpose, and it also provides a way for you to go get a job at a startup if you want. So let's say I'm an investor and I'm looking to fund a certain kind of deal and wanting to invest in certain kinds of things. Naval Ravikant has set that up, and it's a powerful deal. But he's also invested in a lot of social media companies, again, Twitter, Uber, Facebook. And this is what he has to say about social media. He says, I don't think modern science has good answers here. I think that the modern world that we've created is actually really bad. The modern world is full of distractions that I've created. Things like Twitter that I funded and Facebook are not making you happy. They are actually making you unhappy. You are essentially playing a game that's created by the creators of those systems. Me. And yes, it can be a useful game once in a blue moon. But what you are really doing is you are engaging in the dispute and resentment, comparison, jealousy, and anger about things that frankly just don't matter. So Naval Ravikant, who helped create these things, is saying that Facebook can create resentment, comparison, jealousy, and anger. So, Sean, I'm going to ask you this. Have you ever seen Facebook create either resentment, comparison, jealousy, or anger in your life? Have you ever seen that happen?
Oh, the trolls are everywhere online. I quit looking at social media a couple years ago. Like, I just quit caring about it at all. Even though typically everyone my age at the time that I was around was doing it. But I got sick of it, man.
The trolls.
The trolls, they're everywhere.
The trolls are in control
Exactly.
of their Facebook.
The
They're everywhere. You can't get away from it. And, I mean, you see people all the time just staring at their phones, scrolling through the screens as they're sitting at dinner with their family. It's like, it's so weird that this is like a thing, but
It is so weird. I mean, you go out to dinner. It's so fun when you go out to dinner and you watch people that are controlled by social media. They're taking a photo of their food. They post it. Then someone likes it. Someone comments. Let's go on Facebook real quick, guys. Let's go on Facebook for just a second. Let's just pull it up here. Let's go on there. Let's see the big.
trolls are coming.
Let's see the big appeal. Let's figure it out real quick. Okay, so we have somebody who's posting a picture of their family. They're playing their coach. People comment, "You're awesome. Way to go. Good job." There's an ad for SEM Rush. There's somebody posting about their son doing well in a sport. There's people commenting. There's people posting about happy Saturdays.
with
There's
a
people
broken car window.
Yeah,
That is happy Saturday, broken car window.
right.
People are so great. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's how it is. Then you have Somebody else posting their anniversary. Somebody else posting about Key West. Somebody else posting about homelessness. And it's just endless.
What
is
it is going forever with this.
The
You could
blanket
scroll
cocoons.
forever.
It's endless though, and it never
Okay,
ends. And there's all these notifications like, "Hey, we click over here," and I guess we should respond to this because there's that little red dot that pops up, and so we should respond. Here are the messages.
Because you can't have those red dots.
And
so they
every
gotta be
time you
gone.
click that red dot,
yeah.
that activates the same part of the brain
Dopamine.
that is like the
Dopamine.
cocaine people.
Dopamine.
like.
Right, and I just don't go
Dopamine.
on there at all. I don't go on there at all. But I can't imagine what it would be like to be controlled by that because you really couldn't get anything done, Matt. I mean, Matt, you probably could not get anything done if you spend your day on social media.
No, that's absolutely right. And actually, I was talking to a friend about this, trying to say, hey, you need to drop this crap. It's not helping you. And he came back with something along the lines of not wanting to be culturally irrelevant.
I am culturally irrelevant.
That's what I've seen is like all the successful people
Hey,
are.
real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know who your friend is. This is not an attack on your friend, but most people are financially irrelevant. And so their time freedom irrelevant. Most people are irrelevant. They spend their whole day wanting to be relevant. Right. So, I mean, I guess, go on CNN and Fox News and watch all that stuff. But let me ask you this. Let's say that we get really, really politically involved. I mean, we are on fire. Let's just say that you get super into the politics. What can you actually do on Election Day, Robert? What could you actually do? What's the one action step you could do that would actually move the needle?
Vote.
Right. Of which you get one.
One vote.
And I guess if you buy a ton of billboards and really, really put a lot of energy into it, you could help other people cast a vote. But you only get one life. Your kids get one dad. You get one life. I mean, one lifetime. So you could waste a lot of your time focusing on things that don't matter. Now, the next thing you can do to free up time, if you don't have time to listen to podcasts that will help you change your life, is you want to stop engaging in debates with idiots. Now, this is big. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce estimates that 75% of employees steal from the workplace based upon their most recent research. I have found that most people really, really are not happy with their life, but yet they're happy to tell you how you should live yours. So I want to get into this here. Have you guys, Robert, I'll start with you. Have you ever found yourself, probably years ago, not now, have you ever found yourself on social media debating with somebody and losing your happiness as a result of this debate?
I studied theology, okay,
Yes.
and I was raised in a very, had a very Christian bubble environment. And so back in college, I would consider that one of my hobbies. But nothing meaningful ever came from it, and so I totally stopped doing it. However, I recently fell victim to doing this again.
And
Huge
I think
mistake.
anybody out there, if you're listening, you could absolutely fall victim to this because if you're not careful, remember, social media has been created to make you want to use it. It's like candy. I mean, it's like Skittles. I mean, if you're out there and you're being honest, if you ever had a Skittle or a candy bar, I mean, unless you're being, dishonest with yourself and the world, you probably are going to like the way it tastes. I mean, most people like the way candy tastes. It was designed to be something you want.
Nope, raw broccoli. That's what I like.
Really?
That's what everyone. Yeah, everyone. Is that not normal?
I think you're
I'm
weird.
just saying is like the
don't
reason
need that.
why looking at like sexual images is something that guys are like, well, I tell you what, I don't find the female body attractive. So no, everybody does. I mean, every guy does, right? The thing about like, eating bad food is someone might say, well, I don't like sweets at all. Of course you do, because that's what it was created. You like it. I don't like ice cream at all. There are very few people that say, I will tell you this, I do not enjoy the flavor of ice cream. I don't enjoy the feeling of sex, and I don't enjoy candy. I mean, to me, one of the things I enjoy the most is things that taste bitter.
Right.
Things that have no flavor at all. Like, I really enjoy kale. Kale to me is awesome. And abstinence to me is the best. And I'll tell you,
Sitting down.
abstinence and kale, those are my favorite. Also, I enjoy pain. Whenever I'm physically exerting myself, I enjoy sacrifice. I also enjoy delaying gratification.
Are you a Buddhist monk?
I enjoy all these things, and in fact, I enjoy denying myself, and so that's why I get offended when anytime I have joy. No, the thing is, these are all things you want, but if you engage in these things, it will absolutely lead you down the wrong path. So, Robert, tell us your story about engaging in social media and getting into an online debate with a human.
I don't want to go too much into details.
Yeah, just keep it vague.
Yeah, so I generally, have done a good job of staying away from social media, primarily through updating the apps. And then I recently found I did a game where I wanted to see how many notifications could I get. I wanted to get up into like triple digit numbers of notifications as a way to abstain from using social media. But recently, I was on there. I'm in the middle of planning a wedding, and I'm having to use Facebook as a tool to get the details, get people's addresses, to send out invitations and all that. And I come across this person who's being real critical of a friend of mine who's starting a podcast of their own. Right. And so this friend and somewhat of a mentor figure, is being real critical. And, it was the type of deal, Clay, where I hear you talk about, hey, you want to pay attention to the type of people that, have grown real businesses of their own.
Right.
And this person was being real critical, and I don't believe has done that, has grown real businesses of their own. So I don't like it when people throw rocks at what, people are working hard to build. And so I went at it with this guy on social media, and nothing good comes from it. It's like what Dale Carnegie talks about when in How to Win Friends and Influence People, that you should just stay away from arguments, because what's going to happen is that person's going to become more entrenched and more committed to their view, rather than actually see your point of view. It's kind of like I was telling you back when I studied a lot of theology. I'd get into these debates with people over religion and over different stupid minor aspects of theology. And the reason why I gave it up is because I began to realize that, hey, every time I engage in this, it's just me feeding my own ego, and it's not actually me trying to have a healthy conversation and work something out with someone else. And what always happens is that person goes and does even more research to support their view and becomes even more entrenched in their view. And so it's just pointless. Nothing good comes from it.
Let me share this with the Thrive Nation, and I want Matt to chime in here. I am a Judeo-Christian, which means that I believe that the Bible was inspired and it is the literal word of God. Okay? I do believe in heaven and hell, which means that if you don't believe in Christ, that you go to hell, and if you do, you go to heaven. But you don't have to believe that. Furthermore, I'm not going to show up at your house yelling at you as a result of this. I'm not going to beat you down with it. I would just say, if you're happy with the fruits of my life, and my life could be ample example that you could say, you know what, I am interested in what keeps you being so joyful and happy. How do you do it? I would always point to Christ. That's how I do it. But I can't yell at you and debate with you. I'm not going to debate with you, because I really do feel I've met some really, really happy Buddhists lately. Some really happy Buddhists. Some people I know who are very happy who are Buddhists. And you sincerely believe in Buddhism because you were raised that way, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with that. All I'm saying is I disagree with you. I don't agree with you in your religious views, but I'm not going to go on social media and debate it with you, because you've got so much time you've invested into justifying your religion, and I have time I've justified into my religion. But engaging in endless debates will absolutely waste your time. Matt, you got a hot take.
I do. First off, just kind of branching off of what you were saying. First off, nobody cares about unsolicited advice. If you are going up and you're saying, hey, let me tell you about this person, nobody gives a crap. They just aren't interested.
This just in. Nobody cares about unsolicited advice. This just in. Matt, just back to you.
And then on that same token, if you're somebody out there who is stuck in this social media doom loop, the steps that I took, it was a process. It wasn't just cold turkey. Some people are able to do it cold turkey, but a lot of people aren't. So first, I turned off all the notifications. I wasn't getting those little bubbles on my phone anymore. Then after I went for a while with not getting those notifications, I actually started going into the apps, and on those screens, I would unfollow and unfollow and unfollow.
Oh,
and that,
I did that too.
Yeah, it take some off your page without insulting the other person, because then you're going to get people saying, why did you unfriend me? Well, I'm trying to become better, and they get insulted by that. So you just unfollow them so you don't see them, and then after a while you realize, I just don't need it anymore, but you still go on out of habit, and that's when you get your friend to block it for you.
Here's what's crazy, man. Here's what's crazy. This is an idea that will blow someone's mind. Being present is a present, Robert.
Oh, so good.
Being present is a present. Every single moment you're present, that is a present. I'm here with you, Robert. I'm here with you, Matt. I'm here with you, Sean. I am not somewhere else. But a lot of people, you see them at dinner, they're having dinner with other people where they're presently with them, but they're not mentally present. Dude,
on dates.
all the time.
On dates.
It's so bad.
I challenge you to go to a restaurant and not see this happening.
Take out your phone and take pictures, because it's hilarious. People are stuck and they're like on a date trying to engage with the opposite sex, or, you know, if you're that way, same sex, and they're on their phone the entire time. And it's crazy. It's like, how are you going to get to know them if you're not even talking to them?
But wait. But we need to debate theories of atonement. Because that's what I did. We need to debate, okay, is penal substitutionary atonement the right way to view the death of Jesus Christ?
Or is predestination a thing?
Oh, man.
Oh, let's go into that for a minute.
Oh, man, you are pulling me in. But this is seriously the kind of stuff that I would spend a lot of time in. And you know what? I was having, while this debate that I had the other day.
Just go to dinner tonight and watch people. Just go there. I'm saying, go to a local bar, go to a local restaurant and watch people, and watch how they're not engaged, and then watch people debating stuff that doesn't matter at all. Back to you, Robert.
No, and the voice of God was speaking to me through.
Oh, really?
Through my
Listen,
fiance. While this debate recently that I got sucked back into is happening, you know, I was so passionate. I need to prove my point and da 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 da. And my fiance is like, Robert, I haven't seen you all day. Please give this up.
Robert, I have not seen you all day, Robert. Robert, we need to fly to Arizona. Why are you arguing with someone on social media about things that don't matter? And the problem is, every time you write a rebuttal, he write a rebuttal, and he actually is a butthole. You ever thought about that? You write the rebuttal, he writes a rebuttal, but he actually is a butthole.
And I become
I know of
a
his
butthole
I know.
when I write the rebuttal.
I know of his story, and I know the person who giving tips on how to run a business had never run business,
Right.
and he is a butthole.
Yes.
Which is right. He write books about how to run business, but never run business. His mind not function, cannot run business, therefore teaches how to run business, but can't run business. I mean, just at the end of the day, I mean, it's like, dude, what business are you running?
That's right.
Yeah, you're not focused on anything when you're engaged in multiple of these different discussions and troll fests online.
Troll Fest. And as we're talking about the best business podcasts in the world, we're going to wrap it up here with the 3 business podcasts that I would recommend for all of our listeners to listen to at least once. Because David J. Schwartz, the best-selling author of The Magic of Thinking Big, writes, your mind is what the mind is fed. So here are 3 podcasts that I could recommend for all the listeners to listen to at least once, but each one of them I have a disclaimer for. Okay, so we'll go with podcast number 1, The 4-Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss.
Sounds nice.
I can say I disagree with 35 to 55% of what he says. He is a guy who has never been married. He talks about the reason why he doesn't get married is because he believes that statistically it's not probable to have a successful marriage. He endorses the using hallucinogenic drugs as a way to free up your mind. But when he's not doing that, he interviews Ray Dalio,
That was an awesome podcast.
who's one of the top venture capitalists of all time. He interviews Jurvetson, one of the top venture capitalists. He interviews everybody from Glenn
Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah, that was a
Glenn
good
Beck versus Tim Ferriss is a powerful, because Glenn Beck is totally right of center libertarian, and Tim Ferriss is left of center, and they have Glenn Beck versus Tim Ferriss, a great interview. Neither one of them loses their mind. It's great. So I'd encourage you to start with listening to Glenn Beck versus Tim Ferriss.
That's a top 3 for me. The one.
then-
Do you like that one?
Yeah,
the
it was
one with
awesome.
the one with Naval Ravikant is really good as well. If you're into
Yeah.
this topic here about
they're-
cell phones,
And we're going to put it all in the show notes. So just go. I just encourage you, though, to look it up. Naval Ravikant. he explains to you why, although he helped create social media, he encourages everyone not to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for the same reason the guys who created cigarettes don't smoke.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if we've talked about it on previous shows, but it wasn't like when Philip Morrison was being held accountable in Congress and they were being asked about, did you know that these cigarettes caused cancer? The people that they were interviewing weren't like, had no idea at all. I smoked every single day of my life. It's never affected me. No, none of these guys smoke.
Yep.
But they sell cigarettes. It's not like the guys who own casinos are addicted to gambling.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Jay-Z talks about this a lot, but if you're selling drugs, don't use drugs.
Yes.
think you were
Don't
s-
get high off your own supply.
Right. so Tim Ferriss is a great podcast to listen to. Sean, you had a hot take.
Yeah, no, I was just going to mention again, most people think of iPhones, they think of Steve Jobs. I've heard you talk about this on many different
Yes.
podcasts. The man didn't even allow people to have cell phones in the room with him, and he invented them.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was all about focus, maniacal focus, and he was annoyed with distractions, but yet he created the iPhone because he knew that's what people want. People want distractions. They want to be notified. They want to feel like, oh, man, someone just liked your post. Here's the deal.
Feel good.
For Thrive, we do social media posts as a way to grow the business. But this is my ultimate loop. I hope our listeners find us on social media and then never use it again. Because so if someone was like, dude, you made a post on social media, only one person liked it. I don't care. My perfect post would be one that no one likes because they've all converted to not using things that waste their time. Now, Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman. This podcast is focused on teaching you how to grow your business from $0 in revenue to millions and even billions. And this is we're talking about the best business podcasts in the world. Reid Hoffman was one of the original founding members of PayPal. He went on to grow LinkedIn, and then he bought a company called lynda.com. He's done very, very well. And my only disclaimer with Reid Hoffman is that if you don't want to grow $1 billion business, you probably won't like his podcast at all. Like if you just want to get time freedom, you'll probably say to yourself, who cares? But if you do want to grow $1 billion business, and Robert, why is it important for the listeners to mentally resolve whether you do want to grow $1 billion business or not?
Because what typically ends up happening when people do not make that decision of how big do I want my business is they begin to pursue frivolous things just for the sake of it. And it begins to take away from sometimes the most important real things of their lives. That's why you place the importance on the F6 goals and you say, hey, the business, it doesn't matter. It's just a vehicle that needs to serve you so that you can live out your F6 goals.
And my wife is the one who pointed that out to me. So when we're going to have a show here coming up, we're going to be recording it in just a few minutes. I don't know when it will air, but my wife, Vanessa Clark, is sort of she is my irrefutable life coach. She's the one who points the bowling ball in the right direction. She repeatedly points out there are no pins there. Furthermore, you're rolling the ball up a hill, and it's going to come back at you. I'm like, what in the world? So anyway, Vanessa Clark, my incredible wife of 17 years, she's the one who keeps me focused on the right path. The next podcast I'd recommend is Entrepreneurs on Fire by John Lee Dumas. Now, John Lee Dumas is going to be on our podcast. I don't know if you're going to hear this podcast after we have John Lee Dumas on or before we have John Lee Dumas on. I'm not sure. But John Lee Dumas is a confirmed guest on the Thrivetime show. And his podcast was awarded Best of iTunes. He's actually interviewed over 1,700 guests, including Tony Robbins, Seth Godin,
Including you.
Gary Vaynerchuk, including me. I've been on the show. But John Lee Dumas is a top podcaster. But the one thing you can get from John Lee Dumas is he is a master of consistency. The guy actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but when he got out of the military, did you guys know how he started his podcast? Matt, do you know about this story?
No, I don't.
Dude.
You told me it the other day.
John Lee Dumas got out of the military and decided I'm going to devote all my time I have, my downtime now that I'm out, to record a podcast. The dude recorded 7 podcasts a week, every week, for years. And nobody listened. Nobody listened. Nobody cared. Nobody was into it. But he just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And now today, I'll put it up on the big screen here. Now John Lee Dumas today generates every single month approximately $150,000 a month of revenue from advertising his podcast. And he and his wife, they live in Puerto Rico, I believe. He has a house that looks over the Caribbean Ocean, and all he does is records podcasts. So he literally has a house that looks out over the Caribbean Ocean, and all he does is records podcasts. You talk about a guy grinding. The guy grinded for years, and now he has one of the top podcasts in the world. So if you want to look for a source of inspiration, somebody who grinded and really did act before they were inspired, look up eofire.com. Matt, you had a hot take.
Yeah, one of the biggest critiques that I've gotten from people I know, whether it be friends or family, when I started down this pathway to growing and filling my mind with positivity and cutting out all the crap, is like, you're just so extreme. You're just doing everything like it's unnecessary. And I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes that's what needs to happen. You need to go to those extreme lengths in order to get to the next level. Clay, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay. Again, I'm just giving you statistics, and you can argue with me, but you'd be wrong. So here we go. Forbes shows that 70% of people today hate their jobs. 70% of people hate their jobs. Psychology today showed that over half of Americans, approximately half of Americans, get divorced. But of those that actually stay married, less than 9% are actually happily married. So if you want to have a successful marriage or a successful company, you must be eccentric. Centric means the middle. We're measured. We're very, I'm very average. I fit in the middle. I get along with everybody. I go along to get along. I don't take any hard stances on anything. I'm just in the middle. I'm an average guy. I'm an average guy, average lady. I'm an average guy, an average woman. I'm an average human. All I want to do is to go along to get along. And if that's what you want, 70% of Americans hate their jobs. The average American has less than $400 saved. The average American has less than $400 saved. The average American, less than 10% of Americans don't hate their spouse. So if you want to have a happy marriage, be eccentric. You want to be successful financially, be eccentric. But being centric is the worst possible thing you could do. So, but most people are centric. Therefore, you should not get advice from most people. So I would encourage you, Matt, with this final little Bible verse I give you from Proverbs. And because, Matt, you probably know more about the Bible than I do. And this is big, though. I mean this, though, because whenever I give a Bible verse, I worry about, like, somebody going, well, I read your Bible verse, but you got it out of context. So read the Bible verse and assume that I'm a charlatan and I'm wrong. But Proverbs 13:20. Robert, you studied the Bible for how many years at college?
4 years.
4 years. Where'd you go to college?
Oral Roberts University.
Do you remember the book Proverbs? Have you read that book?
I've read the book Proverbs.
Do you remember offhand what Proverbs 13:20 is about? And if you don't, I'm not calling you. I'm not trying to equate your intelligence with memorization. But do you remember that verse?
I did not remember it offhand, but I did just look it up.
Okay. Proverbs 13:20 reads, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." And most people are fools. So, without any further ado, let's wrap up today's podcast. We always end with a boom, and we typically don't insult 70% of the listeners, but I just did. So here we go. We're going to end with a boom. 3, 2, 1, boom!